Great. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks guys for joining me today. So growing up, did you guys have any family members that had a business or anything like that?
So my dad actually did run a windows and doors manufacturing company. And that was sort of for all of my young life. He was running it. And then when I was in my late teens, he sort of was bought out and retired at 50 some odd years old, which
Oh,
is kind
wow.
of like an ideal scenario,
Mhm.
I'd say. And then I call them my aunt and uncle, but really they're my parents' cousins, ran Murphy's Potato Chips, which is like a long gone potato chip brand that also
Cool.
produced a lot of Frito-Lay. So
That must have
there's
been fun to
definitely-
grow up with.
Oh yeah,
Lots of
chips
chips.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like chips at Halloween, chips at Christmas. It's actually like my mom would take me in to see the factory, and like it's not as appetizing as you might
You
might
kind of get
hope.
sick of it.
Yeah, the smell of like potatoes.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. What about you?
Both of my parents were pretty entrepreneurial. My dad, he worked at GM, but in his spare time, he painted signs. So he would take commissions from friends and family to like hand paint signs for all sorts of different scenarios. And he still is entrepreneurial. He's retired now, but he does boat covers and all this upholstery work. He makes it repairs seats on boats and motorcycles and skidoos and
Wow.
things like that. And my mom, growing up, was always working, always home with us, and working in the basement, doing nails, like manicures, and so it was great. That was like her office was like in our basement, and we'd have people come to the house, and they'd stay for an hour and have their whole manicure done, and we'd be kicking around and coming down and bugging her, and yeah, it was great.
So did you get your nails did?
Oh, always. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, always impeccable. Yes.
To this day, I'm always like ashamed of my nails not being in the perfect state that yours
Yeah.
are.
No, and in fact, I bite my nails a lot. So yeah, keeping them trim is like the only way that I won't bite them.
Right. Yeah. Did you were you involved in the process of those businesses, or was it more just like looking from the outside?
I was never directly involved. It was always just something that was happening in the background of our lives. You know, we were knew that the house needed to be clean on the days when my mom was working,
Mhm.
or sometimes for a week our whole living room would be taken up by a sign that was rolled out on the floor that my dad was working on, or that was just kind of always part of our day-to-day lives.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. What about you, John?
I was way too rebellious and oppositional to ever be involved in any of
Yeah.
that stuff. I know my dad would have definitely made space for me, like summer jobs and stuff, but I was way too like doing it my own way, doing my own thing.
So did you have your own businesses? Like what was your first like entrepreneurial moment?
Well, I will get into it, I'm sure, more later when we talk about the whole coming out process, but my parents actually had friends who ran a web design company, and they sort of helped me get like a summer internship there. And that was really my first kind of real job when I was 14 or 15. And yeah, so it was
Wow.
kind of set me on the path that I'm on now in a way.
Get lots of experience in that. I mean, people usually kind of like do a lot of turns and pivots in their career.
I've been doing some variation of the same thing for 20 plus years. I mean, I studied industrial design in there, and thought about going in all sorts of different directions. But here I am, and I think it's the most satisfying place for me to be. So
Yeah, that's amazing. What about you, Jacob? Do you have any like small businesses that you started as a kid?
Yes. When I was in high school, we had an elective course. I think it was maybe grade 11, called Entrepreneurship Studies.
Wow.
And that was my first introduction into the whole world of starting your own business. And as part of that course, we had to put together a business plan, which then there was a bit of a competitive element. So we would the best plans in the class would get presented to the local, I can't remember what it was exactly, like the Durham Region Entrepreneur Society or something. And they also reviewed all of, submissions from different schools, and then we competed against other schools. So the plan that my friend Brian and I put together, and we're still friends today, was digital yearbooks, like yearbooks on CD-ROM. In those days, yearbooks just came in paper form as a bound book, but we actually put together, a whole plan about, creating CD-ROM interfaces for yearbooks, and I think we came in second for Durham Region, which is pretty awesome. But that was sort of my first taste, and then later on, my friend Brian and another friend of ours, Rob, the three of us got together and started a web design business. And I think it only lasted for a single summer, and I think we only had one client who was happened to be Rob's dad for his company. But it was a great learning experience. We actually built ourselves a website and some sales materials and business cards and all of those, all those details. It was a lot of fun.
Wow, nice. So you never helped your dad with any like signs or anything like that?
I never got involved in the signs. I've created things like business cards for my dad. I've documented some of his work, like taken photos of it and things like that. But yeah, I've never really gotten into the sign painting, although I'm sure he'd welcome it. But it was just never where at that time when I was younger and still living with my parents, I was all about like everything's on the internet now. Hand painted signs.
Yeah,
nobody has time for that.
What about photography? Like, were you taking photos for people at an early age, or how did you get into that?
Photography I got into in high school as well, and I was working at a photo lab in the Whitby Mall, and developing people's photos, like 1 hour photos, and they had a little photo studio in the back as well, so we would take like passport photos or business portraits and things like that. And that sort of grew into all through college and even after, when I started working full time, into just like photographing events for friends and weddings. And I've always kind of had that and nowadays I don't really do it except for really close friends that ask. But yeah, there was a while there where I would, my summers were filled with, the weekends would be filled with weddings and events like that.
Super cool. Yeah, I think that's a great way for people, especially nowadays, to get started with photography and creating like good looks, and potentially like managing social media in high school or something. I feel like is a current job you could have. Just like small things like that is super interesting. Because I mean, when I grew up, it was very much around photography, like covering shows and just doing whatever. But I'm so curious about like what the kids are doing now in regards to like side hustles and things that they're getting started with. Because like you said, everything's going digital, and kids are on TikTok at like 10 years old with like millions of followers these days. So
yeah, like when we were in school, there wasn't even the notion of becoming like a social media manager or something.
Yeah.
And now that's like one of the fastest growing occupations. So it's crazy how things change.
Yeah. What about your earliest memory of the LGBT plus community? Do you guys have like an aha moment of like, that's what it is and that's what I relate to at all?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was so little representation, being a teen and a preteen in the 90s, the early 90s too. Like anyone that was LGBT was usually like either a villain or destined to die of AIDS, depressingly enough. It wasn't until, the later 90s that the more positive representation. So like I remember Ricky on My So-Called Life. Like that was, I think, probably one of the first age, like peer kind of representations that I saw. And I remember it very, very well as a result.
Yeah. And you came out pretty early. You said 13, I think, or something like that?
Yeah, I was 13, and it was like a big dramatic sort of a thing because I was 13 and everything was a big dramatic.
Because that's before high school, right? That's like grade 8 or something?
Yeah, it's grade 9, I think.
Okay.
Like right before, it was the summer of grade 9, I think.
What's your coming out journey like, especially at that age? Is because most of the people I talk to today are coming out like after high school or
Mhm.
their summer after the first year of college and things like that. Like that's an interesting path.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I always knew I was different. There was no sort of like confusion that I ever really struggled with from a very, very, very young age. Like as early as I can remember, attractions they were same sex, and sure there was like the it's bad to be gay because of all the aforementioned representation being so negative. So there was a struggle internally to be authentic and honest with people. But coming out itself, like it was a positive experience for me. It made my relationship with my family better because I was, very much acting out in all sorts of ways because I was this kid who had this internal um, struggle to live authentically. So, I came out to my mom first, big sort of teary coming out, and she reacted with in fact, I think I was making such a big deal out of it when I was actually trying to come out and say the words that she was like, did you kill someone? Is it like, what is this horrible, horrible thing that you're so ashamed to tell me?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gay," through tears. And she was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." Like it's fine. She was sort of, the more we talked about it, pretty worried and not sad, but she told me later that her biggest worry was that the world would be unkind to me as a result. And I think that speaks to her character, that like that was her biggest concern.
Hmm.
And then I came out to my dad not too much longer after that, although he was, as I think many parents were at the time, I was like, "Oh, it's probably just a phase, you'll get over it." But obviously I didn't.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
think that's part of just a lack of understanding and exposure to the community or?
I think so. Yeah, I feel like it was a common response in the 90s when there was so much less representation. And I think also the fact that I was so young. Like if I was in my 20s coming out, it was probably less likely that he would have responded in that way. And, I should say that was just sort of an initial reaction from him. And we have a great relationship now. And it's never been, an obstacle to our relationship. But
Mm.
wasn't the best initial response. And I don't think he feels that way anymore.
Yeah. And you said you were born in Ireland, right?
Mhm.
So are your parents from there as well, or did you just like move there? Like, are your parents Canadian?
So
or?
my mom is Irish, and that whole side of my family is Irish, and then my dad is Canadian. Although he was first generation, he moved to Canada from Poland. Really lots of bad things going on in Poland in the
Mhm.
40s and 50s, so they emigrated to Canada. So he's sort of first generation immigrant family.
And was that community like welcoming for you? Like because I know just like some
Mm.
cultures have a hard time and coming from that place and
Yeah.
that side of the world.
I mean, so the Irish family, they were all fine with it. They thought it was great, no worries. Some of my dad's family was less welcoming, but that had more to do with religion than it did to
Mm.
do with sort of where they were from. Like I have a whole sort of sect of family on that side that lives outside Edmonton, and there's like 15 kids, and they're all homeschooled, and we invited them to our wedding, and they not so politely declined. So
Oh wow.
like there's that sort of family
Mhm.
issue, but I don't think that really weighs heavily on me or us or anything at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And coming up before high school, what was high school like for you? Like, did you enjoy it? Was there like a lot of bullying? Like, because I mean, in most high school experiences for my friends and people I talked to, like there was never anyone around them that was gay or like
Mhm.
them in a sense, especially in like the smaller towns.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I don't think there was any directed bullying at me for being gay. It was just everyone was accused of being gay all the time because that
Yeah.
was sort of the way to be unkind to each other. I sort of from a very young age got along better with older people. Like I always wanted to hang out at the adults table, not the kids table. So when I was in high school, all of my friends were in the older grades, and they wouldn't put up with any sort of nonsense directed at me. So I think when all said and done, I actually had a pretty decent experience, even though I was an out gay kid in
Yeah.
rural southern Ontario in the mid 90s.
mhm.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Cool. So when did you like start meeting other gay people? Was it like after high school or were you just like isolated for a while?
Well, I was actually, so I kind of hinted at it earlier, but after I came out, my parents, wanted me to know the gay community and wanted me to know gay people and wanted me to have gay role models. So They were actually working, my dad's company was working with a web design and development company at the time for their own website. And my mom was convinced that the owners were gay. And my dad was like, no, they're just good friends that run a business together and live together and all that stuff. So
sleep together.
yeah, all that stuff. Just friends.
Yeah.
But my mom basically told them that they should hire me, didn't tell them why. And so there was a brief sort of summer internship working with them where it was like, is he? Are they? Are we? Is this a whole gay thing that we are all on this journey? And I think that was phenomenal. I can't imagine other parents being like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, good on your parents for sure.
Yeah, but it really was a very positive experience because they were a happily married gay couple running a business together, and here I am, a happily married gay couple running a business together. So
there you go.
Look at that.
I mean, you just see like it's possible.
Yeah,
you've seen it done before, which is always helpful. I think
totally.
What about you? How was your coming out journey?
Mine happened a little bit later. I went to college in Durham Region while I was at home. So I waited until after I was done and moved out. I think it was really just an excuse to wait for those milestones to pass before actually confronting this big thing that I was so afraid to do. But my biggest fear was coming out to my mom because her whole side of the family is Catholic, Roman Catholic, and very much involved in the Catholic school system in Durham Region, and they're all teachers and principals at the various schools all over Whitby and Oshawa. And I feel like the nervousness was just around having gone to Catholic school and knowing that being gay wasn't something that was talked about or certainly acknowledged in a school environment, and through omission it felt like it was wrong and it was bad. I don't think I was necessarily given these messages of it being bad or fire and brimstone, but it was by mere fact that we didn't talk about it, that there must be something to be ashamed of. And so I think that's where a lot of my hesitation came from. And then when I finally did come out to my mom, I remember we were sitting in the parking lot of the convenience store near my house in Whitby, and just struggling to get the words out. And when I finally did, my mom just being a little bit dumbstruck, just not really sure what to say and in a state of shock. And I think, I feel like for our parents, it must be a little bit of like a mourning process that they go through for like the life that they envisioned for us, because they've realized that it's no longer going to look like that. And I think much like John's mom, she was worried about how the world would treat me. I know that she was also worried about me getting sick, because that's when it was at the time one of the strongest narratives in popular culture was just like, if you're gay, you're gonna get sick at some point and die. And so I think there was that initial period of just getting over that, and then and I mean, it's been smooth sailing ever since. They're so loving and accepting. And my dad, I didn't actually come out to my dad or the rest of my family. It was like through my mom.
Yeah.
And my mom later told me that when she told my dad later that night, my dad just said, all we ever wanted was for our kids to be happy. And, if this is what makes them happy, then, so that was nice to hear, even if it was secondhand through my mom.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been amazing ever since. And my extended family, even all of the Catholic aunts and uncles that I was so worried about, they've all been accepting. They were all at our wedding, dancing and having a great time. And it really meant a lot to have everybody there on that day, because I got to dance with both my grandparents or grandmothers and just seeing the generations there and them there to celebrate us was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's really special. how did you face that fear? Because I think a lot of people are in a similar situation, or were at least having peers and the media or the Catholic Church, for example. I think that's a lot of people struggle, especially on this podcast. We talk about like conversion therapy and like all these things, and different cultures have it pretty hard. How did you face that fear? Like, was that something you were thinking about for a long time, or were you like, once I move out and do these X or A, B, and C, I'll be able to take the risk to come out? Because I think there's like a fear of like getting kicked out or disowned or things like that.
Yeah. I think there was a calculated kind of, when I talked about, always dreaming of living in the city, I think part of that was this understanding that I would be accepted in a city-like environment and where there's more people, and people come in all different colors and shapes and sizes. And I think there was definitely the way that I dealt with the fear of coming out was to make sure that I had that independence before doing it, and making sure that I had a full-time job, and I had my first apartment in Toronto, and you know, I needed that, that, I guess, safety net of just knowing that, if it did go in my worst case scenario, which it really, looking back on it, it never would have gone that way. But when you're in it, it feels like, it feels just so unpredictable, and you don't know how people will react. But um, that was for me, the comfort was knowing that, I could go back to my own home and my own life and my own new friends that I had made in the city. And yeah, I think, having your own, not just place to live, but your own support system is important.
Yeah, I mean, just in my last guest with JC, he actually ended up being homeless when he came out to his family because he was scared for his life, and his brothers essentially threatened to kill him in a certain sense.
Wow.
And then he was homeless for like 2 years and had to like pick everything back up. And, that was pretty hard on him and his mental health and his relationship with his family and mother and things like that. So you had a great path there, but I think that fear is pretty loud for a lot of people, especially with, I don't want to like bring it back to being Catholic a lot, but I mean, it's just like what keeps coming up. So it is what it is. So I think if you do have that fear, having that right support network around you, having that first job, having that place to yourself, just like eliminates a lot of that risk and kind of mitigates like a harsh path that could happen. Or you could feel it out. It's just like, it's hard because you don't want to waste all that time, right? It's like pros and cons. So you really have to just put your feelers out.
Yeah. It's amazing too, though, because I feel like the commonality between both of our experiences, even though, all things considered, our coming out was quite positive, there was so much fear before. And, we have a daughter now, and which has us thinking a lot about how we express our love and affection to her and our support for whoever she will be. And, it makes you think like, could we have avoided all of that fear and anguish and struggle before coming out if our parents had known how to kind of express that sort of unconditional love and support, which is not to say that they didn't, but, there just wasn't the language around your kid can be whoever they want to be when we were growing up in the 80s and 90s and stuff. Like that's very modern, very modern way to raise your children.
Yeah, it's the modern parent way. Now it's like almost has to happen.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you're just kind of stuck in the times, in a sense.
Yeah.
What's something that your younger self wouldn't believe about your life today? Question for both of you.
For me, definitely just the fact that I am married and have a child, and we bought a house last year, and the just the whole, the how kind of, I lost my train of thought, but I think just having these things that are, when I was growing up, felt heteronormative, or felt that they were only for straight people, that they were also accessible to me, is, I think my younger self would be surprised to see that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like the idea that we have a child especially is would have blown younger me's mind. I think like part of the struggle and internal kind of difficulties I had with accepting who I was giving up on the idea of having kids. And I felt like that was something I had to do. I had to sort of let go of the idea of the happy marriage with kids in a, home that we build together. And here we are doing all of that. And it hasn't been easy. I mean, it is still we're so lucky in many ways to be able to have had a child together. There are so many people who don't have the opportunity or aren't able to make that opportunity happen. But yeah, I think you get brainwashed as a kid, especially in the 90s, to believe that you now have to have a very different life because of, the sexual identity that you have.
Right. For other people thinking the same thing, as far as like what you used to think, how has the path been to, getting married and having a kid together? Like you guys have been together for like 11 years, you have a business together, you now have a kid together. Like, what's that journey been like?
Long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've been dating for 11 years, married for 6. And I think like on our second date, we talked about having kids and how it's something that we wanted. And, everything we've done since then to now has been in service of making that happen. So, it's not that it's impossible or it's difficult. It's just a very long process. And it's something that you kind of need to start right away to make happen. I would say, I, I personally have always been a very kind of driven person that like, if I want something, I will just keep doing it or doing what needs to be done to get it, occasionally to my own loss, because I won't let go of something that I can't have. And, I think that has helped us get to where we are. And Jacob in the relationship is the person who kind of brings some structure and logic to achieving the things that we want to do. He's the one who will be organized about it, and he'll do the research and he'll help. I'll bring the passion and he'll bring the actually getting it done. So I think we're so lucky in that respect too, that like we found each other first of all, but that we are so complementary of each other's skill sets, and we have are able to help make each other's dreams come true.
It's the dream team.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that, just having met each other was one of the first biggest hurdles. Like we both had been in relationships where we never have seen this future for ourselves if we had stayed with those people. And I think that, a big part of our journey was just like finding each other and finding someone else who shared the same goals and the same, vision for ourselves in the future. I think when you're with somebody who doesn't share the same vision for the future as you, then it feels like it's impossible or like it's never happen.
Yeah, it's amazing how like the internet and apps have just completely changed the game for dating and finding people, because I think like, the people that we met before we met each other, it that we loved them in our own way, but it's like there was a little bit of like, you're gay and it's hard to find other gay people, and you've got such a limited pool that you end up kind of saying like, okay, well maybe it's okay that this person doesn't want exactly what I want, and maybe this is just sort of the relationship that I'm going to have because of the difficulty in finding that perfect person. And we met on one of the first gay dating websites, which was Manline, which goes to show what kind of a website it was. But we were very much looking for a relationship and managed to find in each other the person that we were meant to be with. So
Yeah. I think also your surroundings, as far as like the city you're in, makes a big difference, because like Toronto just has a bigger pool and a community that fosters the community as well. Whereas like growing up in the Durham region, it's just like you're
the one gay bar that you can go to is
the options are much smaller.
Yeah, and with that comes this idea that you find somebody that you remotely click with, that you've got to like cling to them and essentially settle for somebody that might not be the best fit for you. And I don't know, I feel like it was an exercise in just learning like, no, I need someone who shares more goals with me, or is going to be the ultimate fit for me, rather than settling for somebody just because I feel like I have very limited choice in the field out there, you know.
Yeah, and that's hard work.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
I think, especially with the community, like people are so isolated and feel
Yeah.
alone for most of their lives. It's like still better than not being alone in some cases. So I think, like, you know, like you have to have like really good like self-worth and, you know, an idea of who you are and who you want to be. And that comes with a lot of like growth and hardships in a sense,
Yeah.
or sacrifices also.
Yeah. It's almost like, you know, the apps out there now, they absolutely give you the ability to greatly expand the pool that you have access to, but it almost makes it more difficult because there's just so many more different types of people that you're,
Mm-hmm.
you know, trying to meet. I can't imagine ever dating now. I'm so glad I don't have to do that ever again.
Yeah, no kidding.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. So you guys, you know, thought about being dads for a long time. What's it been like to finally have that come true? You know, like what's the best part about being a dad for you guys?
I feel like we're still in this like honeymoon phase of being dads. We're still like everything is amazing and everything that I mean, we just look at her and we smile, and you know, even when she's crying, it's like it's still amazing, and we're so happy. I think, you know, we've also, just because she's only she'll be 4 months next week. I think, you know, we're just because she's younger, we're still in a bit of a bubble where we haven't entered the various systems out there like school and the worlds of, mommy and me activities and things like that. So I feel like we've probably got some hurdles ahead of us, but for the most part, because it's been us and her, it's like it's been this perfect little bubble.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah, it is amazing in these early days how like everything she does is amazing and cute and just the best. Like earlier today, Jacob was playing with her, like airplaning her over him, and she full on slow motion like spit in his mouth, and it was just the cutest thing I've ever seen, and also the grossest. But like that's the best part, is that like this little person is gross in so many ways, but just so cute and sweet. And you know, you'll also look over and she'll just be like staring at you, smiling, and it's like, how long has she been there staring and smiling at me? It's amazing.
Is there like a community of like gay dads in Toronto you guys are part of, or do you have like a mentor potentially of somebody who's done this before?
So we actually, part of our journey was attending a class called Daddies and Papas to Be, which used to be run by the 519 and then was run by Sherburne Health Network, Sherburne Family Health or something. I don't think it's actually running anymore, but it was essentially, there was Daddies and Papas to Be, and then Dykes with Tykes.
Dykes Planning Tykes.
And it was a course that you would take that was just all about the ways that you can build a family. And it was, we knew sort of fairly early on the ideal journey for us, but it really opened our eyes into all the different ways that you can make a family, from you know, surrogacy to adoption to fostering to co-parenting, which was something we'd never even thought of, where like a lesbian couple and a gay couple just have a kid together and they co-parent, and seemed so fantastical and wild. And then it's like, well, don't most divorced families co-parent too? Like it seems like a thing that people work, that they navigate the complexities of those types of relationships. So, you know, Daddies and Papas to Be was great. We met a great group of people there. We're still friends with some of them. So Omid, who was on the podcast earlier, we met him at Daddies and Papas to Be. His husband took it just to sort of get a sense of what the journey would be like.
Yeah.
In terms of support now, we are kind of like unicorns in a way. Like we were at getting her Ellie's hearing test done at 10 weeks, and a woman literally like ran across the waiting room because she saw two men with a baby, and she was like, I'm a lesbian, I have a baby, we have to be friends now. And like we haven't actually connected since then, but
but we will.
We will, sure. I'm sure we will, because we're like a very small community of people that have to find each other. It's like we need a dating app for gay parents or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the gay community is so small, but then the gay people who get married and have kids is even smaller.
Yeah.
Segments of segments.
Yeah, wow.
Population.
What was like one of the bigger lessons you've learned from that course? Like anything like eye opening or something you're taking away from that?
Start early.
Yeah.
It's a long process. We were just so privileged to be able to pursue the route of surrogacy. We worked with an amazing surrogate who is like a family friend to this day. She will be a part of this child's life forever. We love her to death. But it's a huge undertaking to go that route. But conversely, adoption is another potential process. But my sister works for CAS. Jacob's sister-in-law works for CAS. We kind of know the realities of that system. It is one that is rightly designed to keep families together. It is not like there's just babies being born without parents out there. That sort of idea that many people have just isn't the reality. So it was a learning experience for sure, and really had to kind of adjust what we wanted to accomplish and how long it was going to take to accomplish it. But
and how long was that journey for you guys?
Basically from right after we got married. It was like we got married and started the baby process. So 6 years.
Yeah. Up until the wedding, we were saving for the wedding, and then the wedding happened and we started saving for our first kid. Yeah.
Wow. 5-6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah. And like we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment, which we totally could have raised her in, but we wanted to sort of have a bit more room. So there was this whole sort of housing thing that we were pursuing at the same time. So it has been a very long and expensive process.
Yeah. Plus starting a business together.
Yes.
That's a lot at once.
Yeah. We definitely, we like to joke that like the trick to not being stressed out or overwhelmed is to just take on so much stuff that you can't be stressed out or overwhelmed by any one thing. So it's like we started a business, we got married, we bought a house, we had a baby, and therefore no one thing was like eating up our time.
And what's it like managing having a newborn and like a thriving business right now?
If I could say everyone should do it, I would, because we are able to both be a very active part of our daughter's life. It's not like one of us is just on leave now. We are both, taking a few days a week home with her. And my parents have been fantastic. They come every Monday and they watch her while both of us go into the office. And
they've been so amazing. Like we could not be doing this arrangement without their help. It's been incredible.
And I feel like it's been the best of all worlds. Like you get to be parent with the like goo goo gaga baby for 2 or 3 days, and then you get to like dress like an adult and speak like a human being and interact with other adults for a couple of days. And I feel like when we talk to moms predominantly, because they are generally the one who is home with the baby for the first year, they talk about like, oh God, those first 6 weeks when they're just crying all the time, or like once you get to 3 months, they'll start teething and that'll be a nightmare. And it's like, yeah, she can be a bit cranky. Mm-hmm. There are times when you want to just like go be in another room for a little while because she's very angry about something. But because it's a few days on, it's a few days off, you always get to step away from it for a little bit and reset.
Yeah, it's like we have the luxury of like that option to like step away for a couple days and just let somebody else be the primary caregiver, and then we're the secondary.
And then of course when you're actually in the office, we're just sending pictures to each other of her all day long. So
someone's at the office, someone's at home, and then you guys switch. You guys are taking turns like that.
2 days on, 2 days off. So I'm in the office Tuesday, Wednesday. You're in the office Thursday, Friday, and whoever's not in the office is home with her. Sometimes we bring her into the office for the day. Like our employees love her.
I was going to say,
nothing gets done when she's around because everyone just wants to play with her. But we're so lucky to be able to do that. And that's not an option for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. Wow, that's magical. I think that's like a really good arrangement, and you have like the freedom to do your own thing with owning a business and having the team, because you guys have around like 10 employees right now. So I'm assuming, have you guys like handed more things off, or are you guys like taking on just the same amount, or how does that work?
It was a big process of sort of making sure we had the right people in the right positions. Our team has been fantastic. They've really risen to the challenge. Ironically, like, we were happy because Ellie was going to be born in the summer, and usually that's a slightly quieter time of year, but literally the week she was born, we kicked off a gigantic project with Ryerson University, and it was like,
No time
should
for
we
stress.
be? Yeah, like, let's go have a baby, but also do this project. And our team really
Wow.
managed to a bit of a trial by fire, but they came through unsinged.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a process for us too, and just kind of like letting go of the reins a little bit and letting them have that opportunity to step up to the plate, and and I think they've done a fantastic job.
Yeah, you can be surprised. I think that's like a big crutch for business owners, is kind of letting go some pieces and realizing, focusing on the more important things, and having people take off some of that stuff off your plate is actually really good for your business and like scaling up.
It's become like, we've been hiring a couple of new positions over the last few weeks, and we're evaluating employees in a way that we never used to, because it's now like, is this person driven? Do they want to sort of rise to the occasion when these types of challenges happen, which, before it maybe wasn't as high on our level of on our radar of like things we were looking for employees to exhibit, traits we were looking for from them. So.
And I mean, the whole reason I correlate starting a business with coming out is because I believe that there's like transferable skills in regards to being vulnerable and authentic and daring and all these things. What kind of lessons from your coming out stories have you been able to leverage into the business?
Well, we, as husbands who run a business, every new client that we meet,
the coming out process,
we have to come out to them, and so we're constantly coming out again and again. We think of it as like this one moment in our lives where we come out and now we're out, but really, I mean, we all know there's different groups of people in your life, and there's the process of coming out to new people that you meet. And with business, it becomes a business decision. It's like, when do you reveal this part of yourselves and your relationship? And there's clients who we're so comfortable with that they know all the inner workings of how Ellie, our daughter's doing, and all of that stuff. And then we have other clients who are surprised to even find out that we're married, and and it's just because of different working relationships with those clients. So it's interesting. It's something that we kind of cross every couple of weeks, really.
Yeah, I mean, because we have to come out to our clients, and because we have to have this very transparent relationship with our clients, it means that we're a bit more selective in the types of clients that we work with, and we have to come out to our employees too. So, we really value in the relationships we build with clients and employees is sort of transparency and honesty and openness with each other. And I think that's it's a fact of life of like running a business with your husband, but being a gay entrepreneur is that like you either have to really compartmentalize yourself, or if you choose to not compartmentalize who you are at home with who you are in your business, then you need to be aware of that sort of relationship is what you're going to have with your clients.
And are you
your
doing that
employees.
just to be proactive? Like, I'm just curious why you come out to every client, like, I mean, straight people don't have to do that,
No.
I mean, it's different because we're gay, obviously, but what if you just didn't do that? Like, are you trying to like, mitigate those risks, or like see the fire before it happens?
I guess I don't want to have to like, it was hard enough to come out in the first place. I don't want to have to go back into the closet with my clients. And we work very closely with our clients. Like, we are very hands-on. We are very present in those relationships. So I don't want to have to pretend like there's a wife at home with a baby or something. And
Yeah.
it always comes up. Like, you can't work with someone, on big projects that have you talking to each other multiple times a day without the personal questions happening. So, we just figure it's better to talk about it up front, and we see it as a value add that we are a company full of diverse perspectives and backgrounds. And as a result, we see opportunities in our clients' worlds that maybe they don't even see, because they have a very kind of specific point of view
Right.
that they're coming from.
And are you working with like LGBT plus brands, or is it more just like the general corporate type of environment that you work with?
It's a mix. We said fairly early on when we started our company that we weren't going to work with weapons, tobacco, or oil, but otherwise we have a pretty broad mix of clients. It has over the years kind of clustered around issues of sustainability and arts and culture, and education is another area we work a lot with. So while there aren't any specific LGBTQ organizations, we work with organizations that do good in the world, because we want to believe in what our clients are doing as much as they do.
And what's one of your favorite clients, as far as like, because a lot of those that you just mentioned have big missions, and they're taking on a lot.
Yeah. We love every client equally.
Yeah. Okay, we're not recording. Good.
I think for me, the ones that I get the most fulfillment out of are the ones where there is a really positive impact on the world. So our nonprofits, especially those in the climate and sustainability worlds, are the ones where I feel like, I feel good. I go to sleep well that night, when I've spent the day working on their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to give a shout out to any one of our clients, it would be Forest Ontario. They are trying to make Ontario and Canada a greener place. They plant millions of trees across the province and across the country, and we are finding more and more. I think that trees and forests are going to be a huge way to deal with our changing climate, and I think that the work that they're doing is so vital. So we really love working with them.
Cool. Are you guys planting trees?
Personally, no.
No.
Although I actually, my cousin is a lifelong tree planter. He goes out every April to the West Coast and plants trees all summer long, and then comes back, and he's an arborist now. So it's very much like in family.
Cool.
Tree planting and forestry and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like that's a big topic of discussion right now.
Mhm.
I think there's like the Mr. Beast on YouTube is doing like Team Tree and getting all of those celebrities, and Elon Musk and Toby from Shopify donating like millions of trees, and the 20 million tree project, and then Justin Trudeau talking about it as well.
2 billion trees, which
Yeah.
seems so huge, but like I think that's how many trees get planted in a year in Canada anyway.
Wow.
Although that's more on the forestry side of things, because any tree that gets cut down in Canada has to be replanted.
Mhm. Cool. And just to like switch up gears a little bit, I know that you were talking to Jacob for quite a while about quitting his day job to start the business. I think a lot of people think about that, and it's kind of like a big blocker as far as taking that risk. Like, how did you get to a place where you can take that plunge?
I don't know if we were ever really in the ideal place to take the plunge. I said earlier that like I'm very driven, and when I want something, I will just pursue it. And I wanted Jacob to work with me, and I badgered him until he finally did. I mean, really, like I was freelancing and consulting, and had to get to a place where like we could support each other, our sort of needs.
John had been working on his own for many years, and successfully. Like he was able to pay his rent and all of that stuff. So that was a big vote of confidence for me, knowing that I, had him, and he knew how to do all of this. And for me, it was a process of just letting go of my fears and accepting that there's going to be a bit of risk involved. There's a lot of unknowns, but we're going to come out the other side either smarter, and we'll go back to working for somebody else, or hopefully end up where we are now, which is running our own.
There's Ellie. There she is. She's waking
You're
up.
wondering what those sounds are. There's a little baby in the room. Amazing. And, I think it sounds like there was no regrets for that. I think that's a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to regret that, or I'm not going to be able to, believe in myself to even do it. Was that part of the process for you?
It wasn't so much not believing in myself or not sure. It was knowing that, we could do it because we were doing it just for other people, or I was anyway. It was really the, how do we convince other people that we can do it on our own, and how do we land new clients, when it's just the two of us working out of our living room. And we were lucky that, we connected really early on with some amazing clients, that some of which we're still working with today. And yeah, I think it was just a leap of faith. It was something that, we just had to.
Yeah, I always say because we do development, so I work with a team of developers, and one of the best traits of being a developer is failing early, failing often, learning and growing. And it was the same way with our business. Like, we had to take the leap and potentially fail, and we did early on. There were clients that we didn't do our best for. There were relationships that maybe didn't work out in the long run, but the only way to make it work, to find the right way to do it, was to be okay with doing it wrong a couple times first.
Mm-hmm.
We were also lucky because we were starting out as a two-income kind of household. So we know some people who are thinking about taking this path, but there's an income stream in the house, so that it would be an even bigger leap for them, without that additional runway for things like rent and putting food on the table. So yeah, we were able to save up a little bit and land a few projects, and then quit, and then start our own thing, which was, we had a little bit of a buffer there.
Outside of just getting started on the side before you make the big jump, is there any other advice you would give someone that's thinking about starting their own business and quitting their day job?
I mean, there's common sort of business stuff, like, get incorporated as soon as you can. Don't be afraid to ask for what you're worth. It'll be so easy, or it'll seem like such a good idea to sort of devalue yourself to win a client or a project, but then you're stuck servicing a unprofitable relationship, and you don't have the time to find a more profitable one. I think that's a common pitfall when people are first striking out on their own, is they feel like they can't necessarily ask for what they're worth, and they get stuck in this sort of cycle of maintaining profitable work. And it's really hard to ask for more money once you've sort of set the level with clients. So.
Yeah, that's good advice. What about being in a business with your partner? I think there's a lot of advice out there to say, don't do it, but don't do it. It sounds like it's working out for you guys.
It's funny, like every time we tell people that we're married clients, they're like, "Oh my God, if I had to work with my husband, I'd kill myself." And it's like, yeesh, okay.
Yikes.
I feel like that says more about the relationship.
Yeah.
Than it does.
I think for us, we're constantly setting and adjusting our boundaries with each other around work and life. And, we're realizing that there's times of day where you just don't want to bring up work because it's not gonna be productive. And there are, ways in working with each other that, might be different than the ways we behave around each other when we're at home. And, having, being empathetic and sensitive to how the other person feels in both those scenarios. And it's really a process. And I feel like we're still constantly going through it, especially now as parents too, like, letting the other person have space to be their role in their job, as well as be in the relationship or be a parent, or it's important.
Yeah, I feel like a common struggle for partners here, purely business partners, when starting a company, is having difficult conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And that was never a barrier for us. Like, we almost to a fault would be very open with each other about business things. And ironically, what we've sort of had to learn, as Jacob was saying, over the years, is like, how do we treat each other like coworkers and husbands, and to actually maybe be a little bit less upfront and transparent and with each other, because it's maybe great for a marriage, but it isn't great for working relationship.
Yeah, so boundaries, communication,
Totally.
that definitely makes it work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And what's some of the bigger areas of business that you guys have grown in over the last few years?
You mean like types of business that we're doing?
Yeah, like which
or-
areas, like marketing, sales, like getting the lead, finishing, relationships.
I mean, for us, we actually just had our year end September, and whenever we do our year end, the two of us sit down and talk about some of the things we really need to focus on for the year ahead. And for us, it's really people, building a really strong team that's really driven. And we had such a fantastic experience with Ellie being born and the team stepping up, and we want to build on that. I think that in a professional services industry, which we're in, it is incredible how much the people you're working with really affect the outcome, the work, and profitability. I think it will always have to be a core focus for us.
Yeah, our roles over the last few years have evolved from being, for John, an amazing developer, and for me, trying to be an amazing designer, to becoming managers and managing people and trying to get them to be amazing at whatever they do. So that's been a learning experience for us. It's just shifting our focus and developing new skills in managing people.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really interesting because you kind of start as the crafter and then go into more of like the management role, especially if you want to scale a business. It's kind of like the major steps there.
Yeah.
So thanks for all that feedback. I really appreciate it. I have one last question. We're just about to wrap up here. But what's each other's superpowers? Like if you were to say Jacob's superpower and you were to say John's superpower, what would it be in the relationship, in the business, like in general?
I would say for Jacob, it's empathy. He
Mm.
has the ability to sort of see things in people and understand things about people, clients, employees, each other, with a level of empathy that I really admire, and I think just brings so much value to our relationship and brings so much value to the business. Something I wish I was better at. I'm not to say I lack empathy, but like he's just on another level, understanding people from within.
That's funny you say that because my first
Uh-oh.
thought was for John, logic, which I guess they're things that complement each other. But John's ability to like solve a problem, to tackle an issue from all sides, and when things come up, he's often already got the solution in his head, and it's just a question of getting everybody else to see it. Bother saying that he's right anymore because he's always right, and it's just like understood.
It's worked all these
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. You've earned that spot. Sweet. Well, is there any last kind of messages you'd want to share with somebody listening, or any big things happening for you guys in the next year?
If there was sort of a recurring theme in my life and our life, and whether it's having a kid, starting a business, it's just really going for it, and going for it earlier than you think, because it's always going to be harder than you think or take longer than you think. Not being afraid to have things maybe not go right at first. Just really, if you don't take that first step, you're never going to get anywhere. So the key message, I would say, for us, for me personally, at least.
I'm gonna go with what he said.
Okay. Sweet. Well, that's a great way to end it. Thanks, guys, for stopping by. I know you guys are busy and you've got the newborn, so I appreciate carving some time out to share your story. I think it goes a long way, and I'm sure a lot of people can learn from, starting a creative business. So thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening, wherever you are listening on your podcast streaming or YouTube, wherever you're at. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.